All right, let's dive into the wonderful world of Mad Magazine, specifically 1986.
Ah, Mad Magazine.
It really was the ultimate guide to surviving teenage angst, wasn't it?
It really was.
We're going to be looking at how Mad Magazine used its, uh, shall we say, unique brand of humor
Right.
to tackle those big, sometimes totally ridiculous trends of the time.
Yes.
And honestly, some things never change, right?
You're telling me.
So we got 3 cartoons we're going to be dissecting today.
Okay.
A mad peek behind the scenes at a health spa, because who doesn't love a good spa day?
Oh, yeah.
When the Coke-Pepsi rivalry gets out of hand.
Classic.
And of course, we can't forget a mad look at water sports.
Oh, this is going to be good.
So buckle up, get ready to laugh, and maybe, just maybe, learn a thing or two about the glorious decade that was the 1980s.
I'm ready.
Okay, let's jump right in. A mad peek behind the scenes at a health spa. I mean, this cartoon is just pure Mad Magazine gold.
Yeah.
You've got these packed gyms, people sweating it out in like the most ridiculous outfits. And of course, those wild claims about weight loss that, well, let's just say they're a little exaggerated.
A little.
What jumps out at you when you see this portrayal of the 80s fitness craze?
Well, it's interesting because it's like they took what was already a pretty intense thing,
Yeah.
the whole fitness obsession,
Oh, yeah.
and just cranked it up to like 11.
Yeah.
You see these like muscle-bound guys at the gym totally obsessed with their reflection.
Oh, totally.
And then you got the aerobics classes, everyone in their spandex pushing themselves to the absolute limit.
Right.
It's like a commentary on the whole scene.
It totally highlights how ridiculous it all was, right?
Right.
But do you think there's something deeper going on there? Like a critique, maybe?
Oh, definitely. I mean, think about it. The
Yeah.
80s, booming economy for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But there was this intense pressure to like achieve this image of success.
Oh, absolutely.
And part of that was physical perfection.
Right, right.
So Mad Magazine, I think they're satirizing the whole like superficiality of the fitness craze,
Okay.
but also how it tied into these deeper anxieties.
Interesting.
It wasn't just about looking good,
Yeah.
It's about fitting into this like aspirational lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. It's like they're saying, hey, look at how crazy we've become trying to achieve this perfect body. And it makes you wonder, are we really all that different today?
I think that's what makes Mad Magazine so brilliant, honestly.
Yeah.
They tap into these like timeless anxieties. The specifics might change, the fashion, the slang, whatever,
Right.
but the underlying themes, they're still relevant.
That's so true. I mean, think about social media today.
Exactly.
That's like a constant stream of like perfect bodies and lifestyles.
And it just feeds that pressure.
Okay, before we get too deep into like an existential crisis about beauty standards,
Okay.
let's move on to another, shall we say, battleground of the 80s, the Cola Wars.
Oh, yes.
Mad Magazine's take on this is something else.
When the Coke-Pepsi rivalry gets out of hand.
Yes.
A true masterpiece of satire.
I mean, they took this already fierce competition, Coke versus Pepsi, and they turned it into this epic, almost absurd conflict.
They did.
Taste tests with totally rigged results, executives plotting sabotage, marketing tactics that are both hilarious and kind of terrifying.
It's wild.
Do you remember those old Coke and Pepsi commercials?
Oh, yeah.
They were already pretty over the top with celebrities battling it out for like cola supremacy.
Right.
Mad Magazine just took that existing absurdity and like amplified it.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that, the cartoon exaggerates the competition,
Yeah.
but it also reflects a truth about marketing and consumerism in the 80s.
Okay, I'm listening.
These brands, they weren't just selling drinks. They were selling lifestyles, identities,
Huh.
and people bought into it.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Often based more on emotion than any real difference between the products.
It's like they were choosing sides in a war that wasn't even real.
Right.
And that's something that's still so relevant today. I mean, we see it with all sorts of brands, not just sodas.
Oh, absolutely. Think about
Yeah.
the narratives they create, these carefully crafted images, all to influence our choices.
It's wild.
The Cola Wars were like an extreme example.
Okay.
But Mad Magazine reminds us to be like critical consumers, to question those messages we're bombarded with, and to make choices based on our values, not just clever marketing.
Now that's a message I can get behind. Speaking of choices, let's talk about a mad look at water sports. This cartoon is just visual comedy gold.
Oh, yeah.
All the thrills and spills of like every water sport you can imagine.
It's great.
We're talking wipeouts, mishaps, and oh yeah, a healthy dose of competitive spirit, all presented with that classic Mad Magazine wit.
Classic.
And you know what's interesting about this one?
What's up?
It captures this like rise of water sports in the 80s. Movies like Jaws, the shows like Baywatch, they really glamorized surfing, water skiing, all of it.
They did.
It was all about looking cool, being fearless, even if you totally wiped out.
Right.
And Mad Magazine, they perfectly capture that tension between like aspiration and reality.
Totally. They show us these characters attempting these daring feats, but with hilarious results.
Oh, yeah. Like that guy trying to surf that massive wave and he just gets swallowed whole.
Totally. Or the one getting dragged behind the speedboat with this look of pure terror on his face.
And who could forget the diving competition where someone lands right on the judge's table?
Oh, classic.
It's so over the top, but it points to this like deep-seated desire to impress,
Right.
to be seen as like skilled and adventurous. And sometimes, well, that desire can lead to some pretty ridiculous outcomes.
Absolutely. It also plays on that competitive spirit that was so prevalent in the
Oh,
80s.
yeah.
And honestly, still is today, wouldn't you say?
Oh, 100%. Whether it's like extreme sports or elaborate vacation photo shoots or even just trying to keep up with the Joneses, there's this constant pressure to like measure up.
Exactly.
And Mad Magazine, bless their hearts, they use humor to expose how absurd it all is.
I love that.
It's like they're saying, hey, can we all just chill out a bit? These are supposed to be leisure activities.
Right.
Anyway, I think that's a good place to pause for now.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground, from sweating it out at the health spa to wiping out on those gnarly waves.
It's been a journey.
But the fun's not over yet.
Oh, no.
We'll be back soon to dive deeper into Mad Magazine's hilarious commentary on 1980s American culture.
Looking forward to it. And it's not just the people actually doing the water sports that they're making fun of. It's
Oh.
the people watching, too. From the beach, the pier.
Uh-huh.
They're like judging and envious all at the same time.
That classic, I could totally do that vibe.
Yeah.
If I actually, tried.
Exactly. Or the, oh, thank goodness I'm not out there making a fool of myself.
Right.
Mad Magazine just takes those little unspoken hierarchies and blows them up.
I love that.
Remember that panel with the diving competition?
Yeah.
And the judges are holding up those scorecards?
Oh, yeah, with, the ridiculously specific scores.
9.9.6. Like, they're splitting hairs over a tenth of a point when someone just belly flopped into a kiddie pool.
Oh, it's so true, though. You always have those people who take these, fun activities way too seriously,
Right.
turning a chill day at the beach into, the Olympics or something.
Exactly. It's not just an 80s thing either.
Oh, no, not at all.
I think this cartoon just speaks to this human thing, you
Yeah.
know? We compare ourselves to others. We want validation, even in the silliest situations.
It's true. So, okay, we've looked at how Mad Magazine skewered the fitness craze, the cola wars, and the wild world of water sport,
We have.
all with their signature humor and satire. But what's really interesting is how, even though these cartoons are totally 80s, they still feel relevant today.
You're right. It shows how good they were at picking up on those cultural anxieties, those obsessions. They
Yeah.
weren't just going for the surface level. They
Oh.
were tapping into something deeper about, American culture.
I see that.
Whether it was the pressure to look a certain way, the consumerism, the competitive spirit.
Hmm.
Mad Magazine held up a mirror and are like, hey, isn't this a little nuts?
And the thing is, a lot of those anxieties are still around. I mean, maybe even more intense now.
You think so?
We might not be rocking leg warmers anymore, but the pressure to look a certain way,
Yeah.
it's everywhere. Social media, influencer culture, it's nonstop.
That's true. The platforms might be different,
Right.
but that underlying anxiety, it's still there. That need to fit in, to be seen as successful, attractive. It's like human nature.
And Mad Magazine, they just got it. They used humor to connect with people across generations.
They were ahead of their time in a way.
So what's the takeaway for us? I mean, here we are in the 21st century. What can we learn from all this?
I think it's about perspective.
Okay.
Mad Magazine reminds us not to take ourselves too seriously, to be able to step back and, look at things with a critical but also a humorous eye.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in all the trends, the pressures, the anxieties.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes you just need to laugh.
Absolutely. Find the humor in the absurdity.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the things we stress about, they're temporary,
They are.
inconsequential even.
Right. And to question those trends, not just accept them blindly,
Right.
but think about why they exist, who benefits, Are they actually making our lives better?
That's crucial, especially today. I mean, we're just bombarded with information,
Constantly.
messages about what to buy, what to wear, how to live.
It's overwhelming.
It's about taking back control, as consumers, as individuals.
I like that.
Mad Magazine reminds us we have a choice. We can buy into the hype, or we can laugh at it and move on.
That's powerful. As we continue this deep dive into Mad Magazine's 1980s world, I want to hear from you.
Oh, yeah.
What really stood out? Any of these cartoons hit a little too close to home?
I think for me, it's just that reminder that humor can be such a powerful tool for social commentary.
Yeah.
Mad Magazine, they weren't afraid to push the boundaries, to point out the hypocrisy, the absurdity,
Right.
and they did it in a way that made people laugh. We could all use a bit more of that these days.
I totally agree. Sometimes laughter is the best way to deal with all the craziness.
It really is.
And who knows, maybe if we can laugh at ourselves and the world around us, we can actually start to change things.
Maybe.
So as we head into the final part of our deep dive, I have a question for you to think about.
Okay.
What would a modern-day Mad Magazine look like? What trends, fads, obsessions would they be making fun of today?
Now that's something to think about.
We'll be right back to explore that question and see if we could uncover some timeless truths hidden beneath Mad Magazine's iconic humor. All right, we're back, ready to wrap up our Mad Magazine adventure.
Let's do it.
But before we go, got to circle back to that question we left hanging. What would a modern-day Mad Magazine look like?
Oh, man.
What would they be roasting in our 21st century world?
I think social media would be like their main target.
Oh, yeah.
All that influencer stuff, our obsession with technology.
Absolutely. Can you imagine a Mad Magazine cartoon about, like, those perfectly curated Instagram feeds?
Oh, totally.
The endless scroll of TikTok, or even, like, virtual influencers?
I'm picturing it now, like someone staging the perfect, candid Instagram photo.
Right.
With the avocado toast and the filter, the whole 9 yards.
Yes. Or maybe, like, a series of panels showing how a virtual influencer evolves?
Oh, from like pixelated avatar to AI supermodel.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the whole pressure to be connected all the time.
Yeah, the FOMO is real.
Right. Like, you're always behind on the latest trend.
It's funny, though, because it's like the tech must change,
Yeah.
but those underlying anxieties, they're still there.
Totally. It's all about fitting in, wanting validation, comparing ourselves to others. Mad Magazine just nailed to that in the 80s. And I think they'd still be spot on today.
They would. Makes you wonder if satire has the same punch now, though.
Yeah, good point. I mean, with all the news and social media and everything, can humor still cut through all that noise?
That's a tough one. Honestly, I don't know. But I do think maybe now more than ever, we need to be able to laugh at ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Find the humor in it all.
Right.
It's a way to connect, to de-stress, to gain some perspective.
Totally agree. It's easy to get caught up in the seriousness of everything.
Yeah.
But taking a step back, finding the funny side, that could be so freeing.
And that might be like Mad Magazine's greatest legacy.
Go on.
They taught us to question, to challenge, but also to laugh, to not take ourselves too seriously.
So as we close out this deep dive into Mad Magazine's 1980s, I want to leave you with this.
Okay.
How can we keep that spirit of satire alive? How can we use humor to connect, to challenge the status quo?
Keep asking questions, keep laughing, and maybe even try drawing your own cartoons.
Love that. You never know. You might just create the next Mad Magazine classic.
You might.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Mad Magazine. Remember, a little laughter goes a long way. Until next time.